My family abandoned my restaurant's grand opening for a backyard party, leaving me standing alone in an empty dining room. So I changed the locks, banned them all, and uncovered a coordinated legal plot my father had orchestrated to steal my business right out from under me. The dining room of the Rustic Willow was an absolute masterpiece. I had spent hours making sure every single detail was flawless. Hand-poured beeswax candles flickered softly inside antique glass jars, casting a warm, golden glow across the reclaimed wood tables. Fresh white peonies, the expensive kind I had specially ordered from a boutique florist across Portland, Oregon, sat perfectly arranged in the center of every table. The smell of roasted garlic, pan-seared halibut, and brown butter wafted from the kitchen. It was perfect, and not one single chair was filled. I stood completely alone in my crisp white chef's apron, waiting for a family that never showed up. My name is Clara Bennett. I am 34 years old. I spent 3 grueling years and absolutely every single dollar I possessed building this place on Alberta Street. Tonight was supposed to be the absolute pinnacle of my life, the culmination of a decade of sweat, burns, and exhaustion. Instead, I just stood there and watched the clock. 7 p.m., 8 p.m., 9:15 p.m. There were no calls. There were no texts. There was no, "Sorry, traffic is terrible, we're running late." My front-of-house host, a nervous 20-year-old kid named Liam, kept shooting me these agonizing, pitying glances like he desperately wanted to say something comforting but didn't know how. My brilliant sous chef, Elena, we came out of the swinging kitchen doors 3 times to ask if she should start plating the signature dishes for the walk-ins instead of holding back the massive family table in the center of the room. "Hold it," I told her the first time, my voice tight. "They're coming. I promise." The third time she asked, I didn't answer at all, because right at that moment, I saw it. I had pulled out my phone and opened Instagram, and there it was at the top of my feed, my brother Leo's story. It was a promotion party. The video showed a beautifully lit backyard with expensive string lights, a massive cooler of craft beer, and my entire extended family laughing and cheering. In the center of the frame, Leo was holding a massive sheet cake with thick blue icing that read, "Bigger things ahead." My mother was in that video, laughing hysterically. My father was there, clapping Leo on the back. My Aunt Martha, my cousins, every single one of them. Cups raised, teeth white, not one single thought spared for the woman who had just mortgaged 3 years of her life and her entire financial future for a dining room just 40 minutes across town. They had actively chosen plastic lawn chairs and warm beer over the most important night of my life. I closed up the restaurant alone. I folded every single expensive linen napkin that no one had used. I blew out every single candle that no one had seen. And just as I was locking the cash register, my phone finally buzzed. It was a text from my dad. "Dad, we need to talk about the restaurant's finances." He wasn't checking on me. He wasn't apologizing for missing the opening. He wanted the cut he genuinely believed he was entitled to simply for sharing my last name. I sat down in the dark dining room, opened my laptop, and typed out one single line for the front door. Effective immediately, this establishment is closed to all family members. No reservations, no discounts, no exceptions. I printed it on heavy cardstock. I taped it directly to the inside of the front glass, facing out, so it would be the absolute first thing anyone from my family saw if they ever bothered to show up. 20 minutes later, there was a heavy knock on the back alley door. It was Leo. His cologne was entirely too strong, and his guilt was entirely too thin. He was holding a flimsy paper plate with a sad, smushed slice of that exact same blue iced sheet cake, looking at me like leftover frosting could magically fix 5 hours of agonizing silence. "Figured you'd want a slice," he said, offering the plate. I didn't move an inch from the doorway. "You went to your party, not mine." "I think. You went." "Dad said tonight was just a soft launch," Leo replied, shifting uncomfortably. "He said the real grand opening was next month." "There is no next month, Leo," I said, my voice shaking with a rage I couldn't entirely suppress. "This is it. This was the launch. I texted Mom 4 times today. I made the lemon tart she explicitly asked for. It sat untouched on table 4 for 5 hours before I finally threw it in the dumpster. People got busy, Clara," he sighed, giving me that exact same dismissive shrug he'd been giving me since we were children. "No," I snapped. "People got lazy. Everyone just assumed I'd always be the backup plan. The one who understands. The one who never complains." "Look, Dad wants to invest now," Leo said, as if this was the saving grace of the evening. "He wants me to talk to you about the numbers." And there it was. Not guilt. Business. "Tell Dad the only thing invested in this building was my loyalty," I said coldly. "And that's gone now." I slammed the heavy steel door in his face, threw the deadbolt, and stood there in the dark listening to his footsteps crunch away across the gravel lot. I told myself I wouldn't cry, and I didn't. To understand how I got to that steel door, you have to understand the deeply toxic dynamic of my family. My parents, Richard and Susan Bennett, had 2 children, me first, and then Leo 4 years later. From the moment I can remember, there were two distinct sets of rules in our house. Leo's failures were phases, mine were character flaws. When I was 12, I brought home a report card with 1 B in math and 5 A's. My father sat me down at the kitchen table for an hour and interrogated me about my lack of focus. When Leo brought home 2 D's and a suspension notice for fighting in 8th grade, my father took him out for milkshakes and told him that boys just develop later. At 19, I enrolled in the culinary arts program at a community college. My parents didn't offer a single dime for tuition. I worked 2 grueling jobs prepping at a bakery at 4 a.m. and line cooking at a steakhouse until midnight and took out $15,000 in student loans. The week I graduated at the absolute top of my class, my mother texted me to say they couldn't make the ceremony because Leo had a weekend trip to Seattle he needed help packing for. I sat in my graduation gown next to 3 empty folding chairs, and afterward, I went to a diner and ate a waffle completely alone. 2 years later, Leo dropped out of college to start a hipster food truck. My father immediately handed him $50,000 from his savings, calling it seed capital, and bragged to everyone at their country club about his son's brilliant entrepreneurial vision. The food truck lasted exactly 14 months before it folded with massive debt and a highly publicized health code violation. My father never mentioned the $50,000 again. He absorbed the loss silently. I never asked them for a dollar. I worked my way up through 4 different brutal restaurant kitchens over a decade. I finally financed the Rustic Willow myself, securing a terrifying $95,000 small business loan through a local credit union, draining every cent of my personal savings, and taking out a second mortgage on my tiny townhouse. Update 1. By the morning after the empty grand opening, something inside me had fundamentally shifted. The desperate daughter seeking approval was dead. I called a commercial locksmith at 7 a.m. and had every single lock on the building changed by 9 a.m. I printed a new, massive, laminated sign for the front window. Due to overwhelming community support, we are now reservations only. No walk-ins accepted. Even if we share DNA. I posted a photo of the sign to the restaurant's official Instagram. By noon, a local Portland food blogger had picked it up. By evening, strangers were flooding the comments. One woman wrote, "Boundaries taste better than betrayal," and it got 2,000 likes. My mother called me 7 times that morning. I let every single one go to voicemail. She finally left an audio message, her voice trembling with that manufactured, dramatic outrage I had endured my whole life. "Clara, this is incredibly childish. We made one tiny scheduling mistake. Stop embarrassing this family online. Take that sign down immediately and call your father." I didn't call back. 2 days later, my father showed up at my apartment. Not the restaurant, because he knew there were cameras and witnesses there. "Let's be adults about this, Clara," he said smoothly through the crack in the door. He had his ultimate salesman voice on, soft, reasonable, and entirely manipulative. "I was looking into financing your next steps for the restaurant. There's massive expansion equity available." "You mean control?" I said, blocking the doorway. "I mean support," he countered, his eyes narrowing slightly. "I have a lawyer now, Dad," I said flatly. "The deed is in my name. The $95,000 loan is in my name. The commercial lease is in my name. There is absolutely nothing here for you to control." His mask finally slipped. "This will come back on you, Clara. You're burning bridges you are desperately going to need." "Then I'll learn to swim," I said, and shut the door in his face. The retaliation started the very next morning. A flood of 1-star reviews hit the Rustic Willow's Google page. Cold food. Arrogant owner. Terrible atmosphere. I pulled my reservation log and cross-referenced the names. Not a single one of those accounts had ever set foot in my building. I immediately called my business attorney, a razor-sharp woman named Sarah Vance. "Someone is targeting you in a highly coordinated smear campaign," she warned me. "Document every single thing. Dates, times, screenshots. Families and restaurants are the 2 most aggressively litigious entities on earth." Then came the flying monkeys. My Aunt Martha called me, completely bypassing a hello. "Clara, your father is utterly devastated. He hasn't slept in days, and you know your grandmother's heart condition is worsening. This stress might literally kill her." It was a disgusting tactic. I loved my grandmother. She was the only person who had ever genuinely cared about me. I hung up on Martha, called my grandma directly, and found out she was perfectly fine, watering her hydrangeas, completely unaware that her failing heart was being used as a bargaining chip in a war she didn't know existed. The absolute final straw of the week happened when my mother tried to infiltrate the restaurant. She made a reservation under the fake name Susan Miller. She actually sat down at table 4 before Elena spotted her and came sprinting into the kitchen, pale as a ghost. I walked out into the dining room, wiping my hands on my apron. My mother sat there in her expensive beige trench coat, looking like a tragic martyr. "I just wanted to see what you built," she whispered, forcing tears into her eyes right on cue. "You could have seen it on the night I invited you," I said, keeping my voice dangerously low so the other guests wouldn't hear. "For free." With your actual name on the reservation, you are a woman who chose a grocery store sheet cake over 3 years of my blood, sweat, and tears. Get out of my restaurant. I had Liam escort her out. It was the hardest thing I had ever done, but as I watched her leave, my chest felt lighter than it had in 30 years. Update 2. The ultimate escalation happened 6 days later. I came home from a Tuesday lunch service to find 7 cars parked illegally on my front lawn. My dad's SUV, my mom's sedan, Aunt Martha's minivan, Leo's truck, and 3 cousins. They were standing in a literal semicircle on my grass like a hostile search party. We are not leaving until we talk this through as a family, my father announced loudly as I stepped out of my car. The Bennett family doesn't handle things. I shot back, gripping my keys. The Bennett family lets me handle everything and then shows up when there's profit to take. Get off my property. You don't know everything, Clara, my father barked, his face turning red. You think you got that $95,000 loan on your own merit? You think a 34-year-old line cook gets that kind of capital without the Bennett name carrying weight behind the scenes? There are things I handled that you don't even comprehend. I froze. What did you handle? Nobody answered. My mother looked at the ground. Aunt Martha suddenly found her shoes fascinating. My father just glared at me, refusing to elaborate. I threatened to call the police, and they finally dispersed, leaving me standing in my driveway with my heart pounding in my throat. What had he done? The answer arrived 3 nights later at 11:30 p.m. I was alone in the restaurant kitchen, running the final sanitizing cycle, when someone knocked frantically on the alley door. It was Maya, Leo's fiancée. She was trembling, still wearing her office blazer, clutching her phone like it was a live grenade. I didn't know how far they were going. She blurted out before I even offered her a chair. I swear to God, Clara, I didn't know until 3 days ago. Know what? I asked, pulling up a stool for her. There's a secret group chat, Maya said, her voice shaking. Your mom, your dad, Leo, and Martha. They call it Project Reset. Leo added me to it by accident last week, and I saw 4 months of messages before he realized his mistake and kicked me out. I took screenshots of everything. She slid her phone across the stainless steel prep counter. I stared at the screen, my blood running ice cold. The messages dated back to 2 months before my grand opening. Dad, we need Leo's promotion party to land bigger than her opening, or we'll spend the next decade hearing about her restaurant at every Thanksgiving. Mom, let's keep the party date exactly on her opening night. It will keep her distracted. But that wasn't the worst part. I scrolled down to the messages sent just days ago, right after they ambushed my house. Mom, she's fighting back too hard. What if she calls the bank? Dad, let her think it's about the lease. She won't figure out the LLC trap until it's already legally binding. What LLC trap? I asked Maya, feeling the room spin. Leo got drunk last week and confessed, Maya whispered, tears spilling over her cheeks. In March, your dad brought Leo some legal paperwork. He told Leo it was just old insurance forms from the failed food truck. Leo signed it without reading it. Clara, it was a limited power of attorney. Your dad tricked Leo into giving him legal control over any cross-affiliated family commercial ventures. Your dad was planning to use Leo's signature to legally forcibly insert himself as a silent partner in your restaurant, claiming the business was a joint family asset. I sat perfectly still. My father hadn't just skipped my opening night. He had intentionally orchestrated a boycott to keep me emotionally devastated and off balance while he secretly laid the legal groundwork to steal my business using my brother as a Trojan horse. I immediately called Sarah Vance at midnight. We pulled the state LLC filings the next morning. My LLC was completely clean single member, just me. My father's fraudulent power of attorney hadn't breached my actual business structure yet, but it proved his malicious intent. He manufactured a fraudulent legal foothold, Sarah said, her eyes gleaming with professional malice. It wouldn't hold up in court, but it's attempted corporate theft. What do you want to do? I want to burn it all down, I said. In public. Aunt Martha was hosting her massive bi-monthly Sunday family dinner. I hadn't attended one in a year, but I RSVP'd yes to this one. I printed out all 400 screenshots. I printed the fraudulent power of attorney document. I put it all in a thick, black leather folder. When I walked into Martha's dining room, all conversation stopped. 12 people sat around the table. The smell of pot roast hung in the air. My mother forced a tight, artificial smile. Clara, you came to your senses. I came to talk, I said, refusing to sit down. Isn't that what you demanded on my front lawn? I looked directly at my mother, let her think it's about the lease. The entire table went dead silent. My mother's face drained of absolutely all color, turning a sickening shade of gray. What is that? My father demanded, standing up, his authoritative facade cracking instantly. It's a direct quote from Project Reset, I said loudly, my voice echoing off the dining room walls. The group chat you used to coordinate a boycott of my grand opening. And Dad, I know about the fraudulent power of attorney you manipulated Leo into signing in March. I know you tried to classify my restaurant as a cross-affiliated commercial venture, to steal equity without my consent. My father's jaw dropped. Cousins exchanged horrified glances. Aunt Martha covered her mouth. I was protecting the family's investment. My father roared, slamming his fist on the table. You wouldn't have survived a year without the Bennett name backing you in this city. I built that restaurant with my own 2 hands and a $95,000 loan that has my name on it. I screamed back, finally letting 34 years of rage detonate. You didn't invest, you orchestrated a legal scam because you knew I would never let you control me. You committed fraud. You would sue your own parents? My mother shrieked, clutching her pearls like a Victorian ghost. I'm not the one who forged corporate documents. I fired back. I slammed the black folder onto the center of the table, right into the mashed potatoes. Everything is in there, every text, every lie. Every forged document. Suddenly, Leo stood up. He looked at our father, his hands shaking. I signed that paper because I trusted you, Dad, Leo said, his voice cracking. I'm done. I am completely done being the weapon you used to destroy Clara. Leo walked around the table, stood next to me, and we walked out the front door together, leaving the entire family in absolute, deafening chaos. Update 3. The fallout was biblical, and the legal battle was surprisingly brief but terrifying. 2 weeks after the dinner, my father's attorney actually had the audacity to file a formal claim against my business, citing the power of attorney and a theory of implied family partnership. It triggered an automatic compliance review at my credit union. For 10 agonizing days, my bank accounts were frozen. I couldn't make payroll. I couldn't buy inventory. I sat on the cold tile floor of my walk-in refrigerator, surrounded by crates of organic produce I couldn't pay for, and sobbed until I couldn't breathe. But my lawyer, Sarah, is a shark. She filed a response so devastatingly thorough, citing my clean single-member LLC formation and explicitly threatening a countersuit for tortious interference and fraud, that my father's attorney formally withdrew the claim in exactly 12 days. It was over. The bank unfroze my accounts. I was safe. I should have felt purely triumphant, but honestly, I just felt a profound, exhausting grief. I had to mourn the father who used to teach me how to change the oil in my first car. I had to mourn the mother who existed in tiny, fleeting flashes of warmth before the toxic calculations took over. But then, the miracle happened. The Rustic Willow exploded. The local food blogs had caught wind of the family drama and the reservation-only policy. Portland loves a story of independent rebellion. We got so busy that our waitlist stretched to 6 weeks. I was able to pay down $20,000 of my business loan in the first quarter alone. I officially promoted Elena to executive sous chef, giving her the title and salary I had to bleed for at her age. And then, Grandma came to visit. She took a city bus across town, completely refusing Aunt Martha's offer to drive her. She sat at my chef's counter, ordered the halibut, and looked me dead in the eye. Your father has always confused providing for people with owning them, she said, taking a sip of wine. I watched him do it to your mother for 40 years. I am so damn proud of you for breaking the chain, Clara. Leo and Maya moved their wedding up by 6 months. They canceled the massive 200-person country club extravaganza my parents were trying to control, and instead held a 40-person intimate ceremony in a local park. I catered the entire thing for free. During his toast, Leo looked at me and said, "Thank you for showing me what actual courage looks like. My parents were not invited. It has been exactly 1 year since that terrifying, empty grand opening. My mother sent me one single text last month. I don't know how to fix this." I didn't reply. I've spent my entire life doing the emotional labor of repairing the damage they caused. I am officially retired from that job. I bought the commercial building outright from my landlord last month. My name is on the deed. Every night, when I close up the restaurant, I stand in the exact same spot I stood a year ago. The room is no longer empty. It is filled with the lingering warmth of hundreds of satisfied guests, the smell of good wine, and the echo of genuine laughter. They tried to break me, steal my dream, and leave me with nothing. Instead, they handed me the keys to my absolute freedom. If you enjoyed this story, please hit that subscribe button. It really helps the channel out and allows us to bring you even more awesome stories. Thank you so much for watching.